Well, let me say, first of all, I'm very happy to be in this discussion. I just listened to my colleague, Carla, who I know is living somewhere up in Canada, I think in Vancouver. And of course, your senior Gonzalez, who has been living here for quite some time. And I want to thank these two ladies who are the ones who have enabled me to put my experience and my trading into effect in so many instances, because I think this discussion is very timely, because here with the announcements that were recently made, I too would like to join my sisters in welcoming the registration process that is about to be open. I am still not clear on the details of the process, but I have been wanting to share my thoughts in terms of this process and the way forward to ensure that we do not make the mistakes that had happened with the 2019 amnesty. I am of the view that when the amnesty was granted in 20, I think it was approximately 16,000 migrants who became registered. The that the authorities have been using as though that was of the migrant community here in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is not the case. At the records, the UNHCR, which has been operating here in Trinidad for years, I recall working very closely with them and have been trained by the early days in 2002, 2000. I think it was a 2000 crisis, and our numbers started to escalate into asylum. In the meanwhile, in terms of because going to be pursued, I think the authorities have to connect, because we have signed on to the Transnational Organized Crime Convention, and we signed and ratified it. But not only that, we acceded to incumbent upon us to put certain pieces of legislation in place. While some progress was made, certain other pieces of legislation to provide the legal framework and give up or develop the capacity to better manage this irregular flow of migrants. And one of the things that concerns me is when I hear persons keep on illegal migrants. That distinction, because when the violence from their country was going on for quite some time, in Venezuela come into Trinidad to learn to speak English, and then 2017, whatever they pull on social conditions were in Venezuela, to be an irregular flow of Venezuelans into our country. The context in which in 2015, when the government changed, there was some other work that the previous partnership government was doing, that it will be enhanced. And that is in the context of a 24 document that you can easily download, because it made public agree to a process. They call the document towards a refugee law in Trinidad and Tobago. Up until now, we have a refugee law in our country. Mind you, we signed and ratified the convention as it relates to refugee from since 1951. Our country would have on there two protocols that go hand in hand. Refugee framework. There is one particular that we have not, and that is the smuggling of migrants into the country. We have enacted a law to be persons. These pieces of legislation are integral to the crime convention that we are duty bound to place a party as a signatory and as a party to that convention. In 2017, 2018, when the numbers were increasing with the irregular flow of migrants from Venezuela, as we recall what was happening in the contest, and people were being shot at, and people were fleeing and going to different neighboring, to the closest neighbor, which was Trinidad and Tobago. When the government declared the amnesty, that registration process, I think it was towards the end of May of 2019, and it was chaos. There were long lines. People were out in the hot sun. And it seemed as though that 16,000 reflected the number in our country. And that was not the case. Many asylum seekers and refugee status in our country, they were afraid to go forward, to come forward. As a result, many of them that UNHCR card, they are not able to register, and therefore they are being disregarded and treated as illegal. When you are running from your home country, you have that fear of being persecuted, and your life is in danger. Come flee into another country with a visa and a passport. And the sad part about it is that when this influx was happening, borders were extremely wide open, and we all know about. Thankfully, now I think there's a management that is happening, and now a registration process, and to expand the registration process to the news. And I wish the authorities the very best. However, I wish some of us as critical stakeholders in who they put come next week, because we're hearing about it. But in my view, categorize the type of migrants who are registered. There are many who came to work, and you would refer to these people as economic migrants. Cases with persons who fled because their life was in danger. They were shot in their homes in whatever conditions, it was under very extreme, terrible conditions. If these people have sought asylum here, there are specific laws and legal applicable internationally. There are best practices that we have to ensure that we better manage this influx of irregular. This time around, I pray that the immigration authorities, remember, are trained to enforce the Immigration Act that is in our statute book. That is 1969 law, and I was there in government working in the Attorney General's office who recommended that act be repealed and replaced. In 1960, people were crossing borders, and traveling was very different from what we have now. And with the Transnational Crime Convention, all these are matters that we need to look at and to help to put in place. And from 2014, we should take that document that had recommended a refugee unit within the immigration division. And now we need to fix that and pick it up back. Pick up the piece, continue to work towards the policy framework that will inform and appropriate to help us to better manage this influx that is happening. We know it have materials. You have the Pineapple Farmers Association and some, business entities that will gladly absorb something to work. You know, every year there's an advertisement that goes up labor. 18% to come and register to take part in the Apple Canada. Why can't we do something like that?